All right, everyone. So me, Curtis, and Ben will be today discussing the possibility or the likability of a second civil war. Will be next year, 5 years from now, or will it ever happen? So I think first, before we get into this, we need to preface this with saying this is not a political debate. Because obviously a second war hasn't happened in the United States, so we need to so that there isn't hard evidence or facts or statistics to support our arguments. We're not on sides or anything like that. We're just here to discuss our personal beliefs and just have discuss this and just will be very objective and go forward respectfully and just hear everyone out.
I also want to preface that it was a little bit evident to us that there was a little bit of division about a month ago, as you know, from the election. That was one of the reasons leading up to it. But we just want to talk about, like, maybe it won't happen now, maybe it won't happen in 2 months when a new president is elected. But we just want to talk about, like, the things that have led up to where we are now, and then go on from there and see, like, where it can lead us and then what it would look like at the end.
Okay, so first, I think we need to define a civil war. So obviously, we had a civil war before, but there are obviously civil wars in other countries, like Syria. I think maybe they're still in a civil war. A civil war is like when a country turns on itself over a political issue, economic issue, social issue, whatever. A country is divided amongst itself. So uh, it's obviously clear that we are divided as a country today, and we have been for a couple years. So I think we need to go over how we've gotten here. So Ben, what are your thoughts of how we got here? Like, what events in our history have made it so divided today?
I mean, obviously, we had a first civil war 150 plus years ago. I would also say that our country had some division during the 1960s, 70s with the Vietnam War, but then we were kind of less divided until I'd say around the last couple of presidential elections we've been pretty divided over, and I feel like that's kind of led us to our division.
Yeah, I would agree with that because the last few elections have also been really polarized in the votes, because you can even see it in all the stats, and even if you just look around, that our country has been more polarized in our political parties as it has ever been. So that's one of the reasons why it's super tense right now. I would also throw in, like, some really recent things, which is why we're talking about this, because I think it has really sparked up within the last year. So I would include things like the Black Lives Matter movement and everything that's going on with that. Maybe even COVID and, like, blaming certain people for certain things.
I think also what's contributed to the polarization of our political landscape today is social media, because social media makes it so easy. It gives anyone a chance to express whatever they want to whoever they want anytime they want. Uh, so and obviously we saw in our social dilemma documentary that social media is like uh, the algorithm of social media is very intelligent, and it adapts to your interests. It can detect your interests and cater around that. So I think maybe I think we can all admit to this, that maybe we've had our news. If you go to Instagram or whatever, we've had our news catered to maybe what we believe personally based on previous searches or things we've liked on Instagram or social media or anything like that.
Mm-hmm.
So I think we need to go open with an open mind. So I think moving to our discussion here is, how would a civil war look like? So I'll give my thoughts later, but I want to hear what you guys think. How will it happen next month when Biden is inaugurated, or later in his presidency, or what 10 years? How or whatever happen? What do you guys think?
Well, I don't think that this will be like guns, cannons, all like the normal, like how the last Civil War happened. Like there was tons of guns and slaves being thrown around. I don't think it's going to be much anything like that. I think what Christian had said. I think it's going to be a lot of social media hate and going back and forth between different people, and I think it's going to be more of like a social thing rather than physical.
Yeah, I would agree. I'd also say that it could possibly happen in a way where people don't necessarily know in one part of the country that's going on because the social media might be how they get their news. So if there's any sort of censorship there, I think that could also cause some problems where you don't really know what's going on because everyone kind of gets their, like five tech companies kind of control most of how we get our news in terms of like Google and Facebook and stuff. So if you don't know what's going on, you might not know what's happening.
And I think going off of that, it, like you said, it won't be like the North, like Canada and stuff like that. But it obviously won't be North and South.
Hmm.
But I think we got to first define who would be the opposing parties, who would be trending among themselves. And I think obviously we don't want to get to political debate here or discussion or anything like that. But I think right now it's either like everyone in this country has like this us or them mentality. I think the us that defines you tends to be like your political beliefs or values. So obviously it couldn't be like North v South. It doesn't work anymore. But
Because our country is like very spread out and very like it's very spread out in our beliefs. Because like you look at California and then you have New York.
like
They
they're
have-
their
they
own
have
countries, kind of.
Yeah, they're like their
cultures.
own countries, but
So
then
it's
you
kind
have
of
like
South is
a
its own
whole
thing.
strip of
The
certain
Midwest.
certain beliefs, and then you have everything spread out between like multiple states, and it's just very divided. So it wouldn't look like a traditional civil war where it's North and South. So
So
it's just
would you
very
guys-
hard to speculate.
Would you guys think it would be like a urban versus rural, or red v blue states, or conservative versus liberal views, or who would be the opposing sides? Do you think?
That's hard to look at because if you're looking at like the facts, traditionally more urban are blue, and then
Yeah.
rural are more red normally. So I guess you could base it off of that, but not really because not everyone is like that. Everyone has their own beliefs. Everyone agrees with different things depending, and it doesn't. It does. I don't think it has much to do on whether you're rural or urban or rich or poor or it. I think it mostly just has to do with like if it benefits you or not, or if. I don't want to get too political into this, but like the things people say just affect how people think. So like if we look at both of the candidates that ran last month, they both said stupid things, and I bet we can both agree. All three of us agree that both of them said stupid things. So it's just that once people get so mindset on one side, they stick to it, and then they only look at the bad things that happen for the other side.
I also think we kind of fall into this trap of generalizing people because, like, we assume like, or the stereotype is that everyone in California is like on the left side of the political spectrum, but that's not always the case. Like, I think in, this election in 2016, like, millions of people actually voted for Trump in those elections. So not everyone in California thinks the same, and obviously not everyone, in the South thinks the same. Like, Georgia actually was blue this election, which is a surprise.
And Arizona,
In Arizona,
for that fact.
yeah.
Yeah.
So.
I think California, the Republicans picked up like 4 House seats or something.
Yeah,
in
something like
California.
that.
So, just,
So
it's
we
very generalized.
yeah, we can't fall into like, oh, California liberal, the South is conservative or anything like that, because
Yeah.
that's not the case. People are different. We can't generalize people. So, like you said, I think social media would be very apparent in a second civil war. So, in your opinion, when do you think it would happen?
That's hard because we could see it in 2 months.
Yeah.
It's very easy for us to see it in 2 months.
You don't think so, Ben?
I would disagree. I don't think that. I think there'd have to be a lot more organization for something like that to happen on 2 months. Like, I mean, to be able to. Obviously, there was a lot of unrest in the last couple of months on both sides. Obviously, you had Minneapolis, a couple of police stations were burned down, and you had others in Portland. There was both sides were fighting. It's like nothing was really. Wasn't like people were coming and trying to actually take over anything, So I don't see how that could happen in 2 months.
Yeah, I don't think people are gonna try to like overthrow the government or anything like that. But I think people, social media is an outlet for you to express your political views. But I think people sometimes take it too far, and social media is also, it's a positive, it's also a negative because it can, it can connect people. They can connect people for the wrong reasons. Like it connect people for to organize, like a hate rally or something like that. So that's obviously not a very good thing, and so obviously a second civil war wouldn't be like cannons and rifles or muskets or anything like that. It would probably be honestly like a social media civil war, but so like you have just people blocking each other, just saying mean things on Twitter, but they'd also organize events that would probably go way too far and actually be turned violent. So I think Curtis has some Bible verses
Yeah,
that apply here.
So I want to read first of all the second greatest commandments that Mark tells us about, and it says, "You shall love the Lord your God with all your heart and with all your soul and with all your might and with all your strength." The second is this: "You shall love your neighbor as yourself." There is no other commandment greater than these. So what do you guys think? Like, because it tells that like socially we're very divided, but this is telling us we need to come together. How do you feel about that?
I think I obviously agree with that. I think that too much, especially as Christians, I think that we shouldn't really. I think a lot of people make their politics kind of their religion, and they start to conform their beliefs to whatever political ideology they subscribe to. And I think that we can't really start to do that because ultimately, we got to focus on what Jesus said and what Jesus did, and obviously, that would not be at all engaging in any sort of civil war, even if the government was bad for some reason. We shouldn't be doing that.
Yeah, and I think what is loving someone? Loving is someone you should love unconditionally, and first, in order to understand where someone's coming from, you be able to sympathize or empathize with them. You need to hear them out. So what is not hearing them out? That's blocking each other, interrupting each other, just refusing to listen to them no matter what they said. But we're Americans and we come from a variety of walks of life, so we need to understand that we don't come from the same backgrounds, we don't come from the same life experiences or families. So we need to be able to hear each other out, even if we're not comfortable with what people say. Maybe we don't agree with it. The first step is just hearing them out. And you can't love someone. Obviously, you should love someone no matter what. But in order to connect and build real human connection, you need to hear them out and understand where they're coming from.
Going off of that, we already mentioned this a few minutes ago, but Christian had said like hearing other people out. So what we want to do for our reform is when you're going on social media and looking at your the different sides and the different views, we want you to be very open-minded and to look at both sides and get research from both sides before you jump to conclusions that, oh, this is what I believe because this person did something bad, or, oh, this person did something good for one time, and it might not have been, it might sway your opinion in wrongful ways, if that makes sense. So yeah, just be open-minded, especially for those things on social media, because it's very easy for them to trap you in things that...
It's very one-sided sometimes.
Yeah, it's very one-sided, and once you look at one thing, social media has, like we already talked about, the algorithm is, it will feed you with those over and over before you can even look at the other side and what their opinions are.
Yeah, and going off of that as well, I think, other than social media, just in real life, even with these two guys right here, I don't agree with them on every issue politically. I don't. So, but at the end of the day, they're still my friends, and I still will hear them and understand where they're coming from, even if I don't necessarily agree with it, or even I don't agree with them. I'm still at the end of the day open to hearing what they say, and because that's, if I just say, well, you're different than me, I don't want to hear you, turn away. Well, first of all, that's not a good. People think you're a jerk. That's not a good, just human issue. But also that strain our friendship, because I think what's good about us is that, yeah, we don't agree, but we're able to listen to other people, even if we have different views. So we challenge you to go and just be open-minded. Just be aware that social media, caters to your political beliefs. So be open to that, and look for a variety of sources, but also in real life, just be open to communicating with other people.
Yeah, and we have a Bible verse, Romans 13:1. It says, "Let every person be subject to the governing authorities. There's no authority except from God, and those that exist have been instituted by God." It's important the context of this verse. When Paul was writing this was in Romans. So in Rome, the leaders, the emperors at that time were very much against Christians and persecuting Christians, and he still advocated for not having like a civil war trying to overthrow them. So it shows that we should really, even if we don't agree or even if they're actually very evil, we still should respect the leaders.
Any closing remarks you guys want to add?
No, I think we got it all.
All right, yeah. So other than that, we think, just to summarize everything, we think a second civil war is very possible, but
We're not sure when it will happen.
yeah, we don't know exactly when it will happen, but we think if it does happen, and just to prevent it, we need to be very open-minded and just understand where everyone is. If we continue with our current self-destructive matter of just polarizing content on social media and our discourse with each other, then we'll fall into chaos. But if we just remain open-minded and just be able to listen and connect with other people, then I think we can prevent a second civil war, or at least alleviate the pain that might come from that.
All right. Thank you guys.